In the first episode, we discussed how children tend to inherit the traits of their parents. And this is true. But it's not simply that children are, say, the average of their parents. For example, if you have a black Labrador Retriever and a yellow one, when you breed them, you don't simply get a dark yellow Labrador Retriever. You get either a black one or a yellow one. And there's actually a system to work out and predict this inheritance. So stick with me for a moment, as we're going to get a bit technical, but I promise it will all be quite clear in the end. Essentially, we have chromosomes. Chromosomes are where all of your genetic information is stored. You have 23 pairs of chromosomes. That adds up to 46 total. In each pair, you get one from your mother, one from your father. Now, information in these chromosomes is organized. So on these chromosomes, there are locus, and that just means a location on the chromosome. And there are many, many, many of these. And finally, at most of these loci, you'll find genes, which are segments of DNA that code for proteins. In humans, each gene locus has 2 alleles, one inherited from each parent. These alleles are different versions of the same gene and can influence the individual traits each organism has. So you have one gene on every locus made up of 2 alleles. Now that we know this hierarchy, let's understand what this actually means. So essentially, all humans have the same number of chromosomes. And aside from sex chromosomes, which we'll get into in a later episode, these chromosomes all have the same locus, or, well, loci for plural. Just cutting in to clarify that when I say all chromosomes have the same number of locus, I mean that the same chromosome pair in different people will have the same locus. So chromosome pair 2 in one person will have like 99.9% the same locus as someone else. But what I didn't make clear was that different pairs of chromosomes in the same person will not have the same number of locus. So chromosome pair 2 and chromosome pair 5 will not have the same number of locus. They'll be different lengths, different sizes, but chromosome pair 5 in Joe and chromosome pair 5 in Bob will have essentially the same number of locus. Now, what changes per person is alleles. And essentially, this is the information actually stored in the locus. And there's a certain pattern of inheritance for these alleles, which will help explain both how they store information and how it descends to offspring. So allow me to explain the framework of how it usually works, and then we'll get into exceptions. So for each locus, you have 2 alleles, the combination of which define which trait you're actually going to present. And these alleles will have a dominant and recessive version. Now, the best way to understand this is with an example. So let's imagine a locus programming for the color of snake skin. So we have snakes. These snakes can either be red or blue. So there's a red allele, and this is the dominant allele. And there's a blue allele, which is the recessive allele. So now, let's zoom in to the skin color locus. If the snake has 2 red alleles, it will have red skin. And if the snake has 2 blue alleles, it will have blue skin. And if the snake has 1 red allele and 1 blue allele, the snake will be red, since the red allele is dominant. Now, we actually have a very interesting way of writing this down. So essentially, we do it like this. When looking at our snake's skin color locus, we'll indicate the dominant and recessive alleles with 2 letters. And we usually choose which letter by picking the first letter of the dominant trait. So red, the first letter of red is R, and the dominant trait is red. So our snake with 2 red alleles could be noted like this, capital R, and that indicates we have a snake with 2 red alleles. Our snake with 1 red allele and 1 blue allele would therefore be written like this, capital R, lowercase r, the capital R representing the red allele, which is dominant, and the lowercase r representing the blue allele. And our snake with 2 blue alleles would be written like this, lowercase r, lowercase r. Now this lets us easily indicate dominant and recessive alleles with just 2 letters. Now these combinations of alleles also have unique names. So capital R, that's two of the same allele, is called homozygous. Lowercase r, which is also two of the same allele, is called homozygous as well. So if it's two of the same alleles, you would call it homozygous. But with capital R, lowercase r, which is two different alleles in the same locus, it's called heterozygous. So two of the same alleles are homozygous, and two different alleles are heterozygous. Now, with our new understanding of alleles and the notation surrounding them, let's see how they actually inherit. So we can actually use a handy tool here called a punnet square. Now, a punnet square works like this. You make a grid of 4 boxes. We put the alleles of one parent on top and the alleles of the other parent on the side. So let's bring in our snakes here, our red snake and our blue snake. So if we look at the red snake, we'll see its alleles look like this. Capital R, lowercase r. That's heterozygous, and it has one dominant red allele and one recessive blue allele, resulting in the red snake. The blue snake is, of course, lowercase r, homozygous, 2 recessive blue alleles. And this is the only way a blue snake could come about since blue is recessive. So now we have each of these on their appropriate area in the box. And to find out what its offspring will be like, we'll use the box. So to fill in the box, we take one letter from each column. So for this first box, we take the dominant red allele from the top and the recessive blue allele from the side. Together, this would make a heterozygous offspring, which would be red, since red is dominant. Same for the one below. Now, in the square on the top left, we would take the recessive blue allele from the top and the recessive blue allele from the side, resulting in a blue offspring. And the same for the box below that. So, every time a child is produced, it will have an equal chance of being any of the 4 combinations in the boxes. In the case of this particular cross, the offspring of the snakes will have a 50% chance of being red and a 50% chance of being blue, since 2 boxes lead to red offspring and 2 boxes lead to blue offspring. As you might already realize, parents with different sets of alleles would have different odds for their offspring. Now, importantly, there are times when inheritance does not follow this, as there are exceptions to the dominance rule. Now, the first is the concept of incomplete dominance. This is when having one dominant allele present does not override the recessive allele. Instead, the phenotype of the offspring is a mix between both traits. So, let's say we have a species of lizard. One variety is red and one variety is yellow. So, usually, if these two bred and these are homozygotes, then the resulting offspring would be heterozygous. And it would have the trait of whichever allele is dominant. Let's say in this case the dominant allele is yellow, then the offspring would be yellow because the one yellow allele is dominant. But with incomplete dominance, neither allele will overwrite the other one. So it would actually result in a creature with a mix of both traits. So in this case, an orange-skinned lizard. There can also be partial dominance towards one or the other. So a heterozygote could lean towards red skin if red was slightly more dominant than yellow but not totally dominant. So its skin wouldn't quite be red, but the yellow would be less noticeable, so it would be sort of a yellow-orange color. And the next exception is called codominance. This is when both traits are fully expressed and dominant. So the animal has a combination of characteristics. So let's say we have 2 cows. Just like last time, when these two breed, assuming they're homozygous, you would expect their child to be one color or the other, whichever one was the dominant allele. But in the case of codominance, both alleles are dominant, meaning, and unlike incomplete dominance, they don't mix. Instead, they're both fully expressed, meaning the cow will be partially white and partially red, since both are fully dominant in some areas. Each of these 2 exceptions essentially leads to a third phenotype, since homozygous one way or the other and heterozygous all produce a unique phenotype. Now, the final very important exception is polygenic inheritance. Polygenic traits are traits influenced by many genes at different loci, Each locus contributes a small amount to the resulting trait, pushing it in one way or the other. And those small effects add up, producing a smooth range of traits in the population. For example, imagine a bird whose feather color is placed along a spectrum from red to blue. Instead of one gene for color, simply picking red or blue like you might expect, there are many loci. At each one, different alleles make the bird slightly redder or slightly bluer, each following their own punnet square. The sum across all the loci yields a continuous range of colors from red to blue. In real life, polygenic traits are extremely common. Human examples include height and skin color, which have lots of variety, because many loci add small effects one way or the other, combining into the resulting trait. Okay, that's the end of this video. I know there was a lot of theory in this one, and I hope I was able to make it clear. In the description and the comments, I'll post written explanations of all the terminology that'll help you if you're still struggling to understand this a little bit. But with that, over the last 3 episodes, you've successfully gotten through some very advanced theory. Thank you for watching, and there's more in the series to come soon. So if you like, leave a like, and subscribe if you want to see the next few videos, because we're going to be continuing this series.